We're going to call this committee meeting to order. This is the Facility Use Committee of the Limericksville Unified School District Board of Education. It is August 24th, 6:33 p.m. Call to order. My name is Matt Balzerini. I'm on the board and I'm the chair. Shane Nielsen, board member. Here. Alvina Kaiser, CBO.
Here.
James Nolan, DMOT staff. Here. Erica Smith Payne, community member.
Here.
And Corey Strock, community member.
Here.
We have a quorum, thank you. Facility use update, item A is revised facility use handbook, which is August 5th, 2015.
Right, the board approved it, and it is now on the website, revised. No amendments.
There was one item that we were going to bring back for discussion with the committee.
Probably the outside vendor, doing a separate section for the outside vendor.
Okay. Yeah, the board talked about it for a little while, and it was still kind of, we were all over the place, so the board said, why don't you send it back to the committee, have a further discussion, and bring it back. So, is that on there for tonight?
Well, we just have the handbook, facility use handbook.
All right, so we will be looking at that eventually here. Oh, for the vendors, correct. Okay.
Yes, you are correct.
At least for the discussion. Item B, facility use minutes.
That is something new. On the very first meeting, we took minutes and decided we didn't need minutes, and then we finally returned back to taking minutes. Right. So I included a copy of the minutes as we had taken them to the board as part of Mr. Balzerini's report. And that's,
that was one of the deals that we made with the board, that we would bring back information that we discussed at the meeting. We figured that was the best way to do it, was bring them the minutes so everyone could see. Item C, denied applications.
the only thing that has come up, and I'll let Lori speak to this, we've had a couple of original applications that were submitted that we could not accommodate in the schedules that they had requested. One of them being the Bethany Cub Scouts, and then the other was I'm trying to get the name, I think that's your group that. Thank you. That would be it. So I don't know if Laura, if you'd like to mention the issue that we have going on with the Bethany Cub Scouts.
The challenge that we're facing is that Bethany has finally put in all of their requests for their sports usage on the facility. And between basketball and volleyball, they're running it from 3 to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. So that limits the availability of space in the MPR for the seasons. So it'll be volleyball will be first, and then basketball will be secondary. So as it runs in tandem, based on what Come Gang would like to use would be 6 to 8 p.m. And then I have one Wednesday a month for the Bethany, the Cub Pack 511, where now their schedule will be interrupted with that as well.
Is there a reason the pack has to use the multipurpose room and not a classroom?
Yeah, they actually use it to build their Pine Derby car box, their cars for their race at the end of the year.
Science classroom to do that too?
They can't use the science rooms.
We don't let them use the science rooms.
So they've requested, because they have like 40 to 45 kids at any given time, so it's usually about 45 to 50 people in a room. Yeah, it's pretty big.
A big Cub Scout pack.
But it also, they have their blue and gold banquet coming up, as well as the Derby races itself.
Okay.
So as far as accommodations, for the Cub Scouts, I'm not sure, and the others, that the other requests may have to be in after the schedule that the school sites have set, which is after 8 o'clock.
Correct.
Yes. So that, I just wanted to report that.
Okay.
We'll get an opportunity to discuss that more, right?
Item D, unapproved use notifications.
We didn't have any. There was some miscommunication about locked gates, which we hope we've got the message clear now. So Lori's been
first week and a half
running
of
out on the
school.
weekends.
Calm down.
I guess I can kind of mention under the notification about posting signs. Mr. Nolan came up with this sign, but he had the sun down to sun up, and I was thinking that dusk till dawn. So I guess I know, obviously, if someone completes a permit for a field, they would have first, what's the word I'm looking for, priority off anyone who has not gone through the process. But if there's no permit held, then it's open to the public.
This says school playgrounds. Where would you expect to place this?
What's that?
Where would you expect to place this? It says school playgrounds.
He was thinking, this is very rough draft.
All
I
right,
probably
I'm
should
just
have written
asking,
draft.
yeah.
You had another idea of putting here
Playgrounds and fields.
playgrounds and fields closed from, and then I guess deciding whether we wanted to use the sundown to sun up
Dusk to dawn.
or dusk to dawn.
What we find is we're having people on campus after sundown. And without some kind of signage, we can't use the sheriff's department to legitimately ask them to leave. This gives them a little, the penal code listed on there, because then it's considered trespassing.
And the other thing on this 635G, you have to add PC after it.
Okay, like this one.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Would you need to add without reservation as well? Like if, because it says, if it says school playgrounds and fields closed from sundown to sunup or dusk till dawn, if someone reserved the field for a period in the dark, wouldn't you need to add that on here, like without reservation, or does that not make a
There would
difference?
be no way we could accommodate a school after dark, because the elementary schools have no lights to allow for that.
Wickland does one annually.
I did that, yeah. The Relay for Life.
Relay for Life always goes past sundown. Even this year
Isn't that
didn't go
usually in
overnight,
the
but it
quad
went
area,
well.
though?
It's in the quad, yeah.
It's in the quad area, but
It's in
there's
the
usually
quad area.
some lighting within the
Right.
quad. But out in the field, I don't think the lighting would be as,
So you can have, say something like playgrounds and fields,
close from, what is your opinion, dusk to dawn, or?
dusk to dawn, yeah.
Okay. I do too. This sounded like potato chips to me. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
sounds good.
Uh,
So nothing else for D?
Nothing else for D?
Item E, change of tier status notification.
I don't think that we had any that we had to notify.
Okay.
We have later on the agenda those that we need to determine what tier they belong in.
On that, have we been recontacted by Tracy Youth Football?
Item F, reimbursement organization.
None?
Item G, the high school track, and we'll call it track and field.
And then the maintenance. I kind of wanted Jim Nolan to explain the maintenance required for the high school track turf.
That's actually for the turf. We are required in our maintenance schedule to water down the turf. It's for, not only for maintenance reasons so that the plastic pellets settle in, but it's also for sanitary reasons, because you need to wash that stuff down after someone's been, especially during football and that type of thing. We have held off from doing that over the summer months due to the water problems, and also the fields were not being used. But now that it is, we really need to do that on a regular basis. I've been trying to get through to the CSD so that we can let them know that we need to do this, so that, and to work it out with them. Because right now, we can only water from 9 p.m. till 6 a.m., and I don't want to have to turn all the lights on just to water. And remember, we're talking about cannons. These put out as much, if not more, than like a hose from a fire department. These are quite large. So we would need to do it during the daytime. So I'm just trying to work it out with them for a schedule, and also so that we don't get multiple hits on Facebook saying that We're we're watering.
Have we reached out to them and not received a response?
We keep calling and trying to
It's
get them.
unfortunate that none of them are here tonight. Just,
But that's something that we're going to have to start doing, even with the water problem.
You want to speak to it?
The other thing that, thank you, Mr. Nolan. The other thing that we need to remind you guys is that if we don't water it on a regular basis, we void our warranty
absolutely. We got to do it, yeah.
on the $1 million turf. So,
No, not us.
yeah. And so I think the last time we watered it was last
Yes.
football season, which was a long time ago. So, and we have to keep a log of when we do it. So if we don't, it could void our warranty.
Is trucking in non-potable water from an alternate source an option? How much water are we talking about? And does it have to be at a certain pressure?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
As
so
it
then
is
that's
right
not gonna be an
now,
option.
to use the water cannons, I cannot be doing any other irrigation because it takes all of the pump's power to do
But
those.
does the field require water at that pressure, or does it just require water?
It would have to in order to get the distance. The cannons throw the water more than halfway across.
Right, but my idea is if we're doing a non-potable trucked-in water option, that we could use like a portable, I don't know the volume of water we're talking about. I'm just trying to find an option, because then if we're
Wouldn't be
using that
able
water, we're
to
not subject to the
drive the
CSD's
truck
rules.
onto the field, it would ruin the turf. So you're thinking of like a water truck?
No,
that
no,
sprays
I'm
out the
thinking
back?
of like a golf cart.
Oh, we're talking
know.
hundreds of gallons of water.
Yeah, but you get, like I say, I don't know how much we're talking about, and you can get a non-potable, what are those things, 40 or 50 gallons?
No. We're talking thousands of
that's why
gallons
I-
of water.
Okay, just trying to find an option, because if we bring in water that's not CSD water, we're not subject to their watering rules, is the point. So if we can find it from an alternate source, if that's possible, but again, if it's,
I would have to look at the cost involved to do that.
exact, and that's the other part of it, yeah, is the cost, so.
Oh, and water's cheap here.
Water and water.
Are we under the CSD's rules for watering? I know it's residential rules. Do we fall under the residential rules?
We are not a special customer.
No? Okay.
We have been limited to only 3 days a week. The residents now are down to 2.
And did she mention something about shutting the irrigation down?
Yes, we have another request. We have to shut down all irrigation for the entire district from Wednesday through Friday.
What? Based on what?
There's a herbicide being put into where the intake is, and so we cannot take any water in for 48 hours. So the community will be running strictly on what's in the tank during that 48-hour period. So they don't want any commercial watering or the school's watering to take away.
And this couldn't have occurred 3 weeks ago?
This is the second time they've done it to us.
Well, we'll still have water, but they
Right,
just
but-
want us
but-
to.
It's limited
Conserve
to the tank, we have to
even more.
conserve stridently, and again, it's something where if they could have done this 3 weeks ago, put the schedule in place so that if this occurred, we could have done it at a time where we wouldn't be such a major hit as it already is. Anyway,
You think we're a special customer?
you would think that there'd be at least some amount of communication, I don't understand.
I think
I'm not talking here. There's another side to this conversation that doesn't appear to be conversing. is my
I think the timing is out of their hands. It's being done by the state.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Thank you. Item H, civic permit software and reports.
As I was running reports, I thought it would be helpful if I could run reports by tiers to figure out how many hours each tier was using. When I went in there to run the reports that are included in your packet, it didn't allow that, didn't allow selecting particular organizations. So I contacted the company. He says it is possible, but of course they only run updates every so often, and he was going to make sure that he put it in on the next update. So I just thought it would be helpful
Stay listening.
to know how much are we collecting from Tier 2A, how much are we collecting from 2B.
And then, just so the rest of the committee knows, I had a meeting with Lori and Alvina, and we were talking about just talking about this whole process with accepting applications, and are we gonna do a conference call, or how are we're gonna talk to them? and
I
see
did
if they
reach
can-
out to him, but it would have to be a conference call. I don't believe he's
him come out?
nearby. But he usually responds within a day when we reach out to him.
We're gonna try and see if we can get them to help with, we have a unique process where we're accepting all the applications, putting them in order, and then kind of going, which the system doesn't allow right now, but I'm interested to see if they can configure the system to help us out with the way we're doing it. So we're gonna have a talk with him. There'll be more to follow on that.
And you have in your packet, obviously, the high usage after school is out and drops before 9 p.m. And then the next report shows the number of hours, the large gym being the largest use right now. But then again, this is all groups. So if there was a football team was using it, it would be included in the stadium use. So that's why I reached out to Civic Permits to see if I could break out the other tiers from the hours. And then you have the finance report. Obviously, it's minimal from July 1 through August 21st. And then I did include the staff hours report. It's a portion of something that Matt had requested for the other individuals. Lori's time being consumed 31% of her work year, maintenance about 6%, and mine almost 9%. And then I just put in the roles of, obviously, there's other people that are affected when organizations use our facilities, the principal and the school office manager as well.
And that was information that I presented to the CSD board during their conversation about whether to or whether not to get that facility they wanted to do. Temporary facility for recreation stuff. Okay, thank you. So that covers your finance report as well, right?
Yep.
Okay, information discussion item A is use of facilities and mobile vendor procedures.
I know the fields have been requested, and we had not released any of the high school fields. We had asked for the athletic director to be present to share concerns she may have allowing the fields to be used by outside organizations, considering the heavy use our own school teams are using. Lori, did you have anything to add as far as who's already reaching out?
It was Lambertville School Foundation wanting to know about if they could use the softball or baseball fields at the high school and if the grassy fields were open for rental, which they're not right now. There's also been questions on Facebook in regards to field use. Since the K through 8s, they're having such a difficult time finding field use because they're already either being rented or they're impacted from the community to be able to find space if the high school was available to use the grassy areas as well.
For mobile food vendors?
Well, it
Well,
was
it's
use
kinda
of
two-
facilities
I
and
guess
mobile,
we
so it's
could've
a
put 'em on two
two-part
separate
thing.
lines.
They're two different things, using facilities and then, so
Right.
we're kind of two topics in
Okay,
one item.
so they want to have an event, and at that event, they want to bring mobile food vendors, is what we're talking about.
No, right now, it's just talking about use of it should have been two
fields.
items,
Yeah,
but
it
it's
should have
just
been
one.
two.
They want to use the high school, the fields at the high school.
And we do not have fees established for any of those fields at the high school.
They want to use the softball or baseball fields for softball and baseball?
Yes, correct. And then the grassy field for soccer. And currently, we're running into issues with our own organizations being able to use the stadium only, and marching band or vice versa, they're having to play in the grassy area, which we're trying to work on an alternative to get that field striped for them, so they have two locations to work off of instead of just the stadium for the markers.
Are the actual fields in shape good enough to be used?
Yeah, that was the last conversation I believe we had as a committee was that we were not going to allow permit use because they weren't ready. So I guess that's the appropriate question is, are they ready now for use?
Speaking specifically for today, the football team is practicing on the grass field right now because the soccer team is playing in the stadium.
Oh,
So
see.
it's at least somewhat reasonably ready for use. But again, that's going to go back to football's going to have practice, soccer's going to have practice. The soccer team's going to use that field if the football team's practicing on the track. And if the soccer game has a game, the football team's going to have to move. During the week, I don't see that field. Saturday and Sunday is the only opportunity I could see for that field at all. Now, baseball and softball different, just the grass field in the middle. Monday through Friday, those teams are going to be practicing there. And isn't it going to get worse isn't the girls' season going to move?
Come on up just so we can get on the recording, please. Sorry.
So
He's a smile.
Drop this.
there is a,
Left hand?
right there.
Oh, that's so cute. That is left. Oh, that's so cute. Starting next year, soccer for both boys and girls will be a winter sport. So both the stadium and the grass field will be in use because we will have 3 teams for both boys and girls by next year.
Right. So either way, I mean, it'll make it easier during the fall season because you won't have boys playing soccer at the same time, but then you still got JV and
A little
varsity.
bit, but we'll have 3 football
Like,
teams.
you still got
so-
JV freshmen and varsity football going at
Exactly.
the same time too, so. I don't see that field getting any opportunity to be used during the week. Weekends maybe, but not during the week.
Well, and
Screw you,
that, I
anyway.
mean, that raises the next question is, do we want to allow use on the weekends and run the risk of having the fields not be in the proper
That's
condition
exactly what I was gonna
for
say.
our teams when, so.
Because we do have some issues with litter sometimes too, and so then that would force.
Yeah, but
our
that's what we get
groups.
fees for, that's what we get deposits for.
But normally
stuff
for the
like that.
fields, we don't have a check-in, check-out for the field use on the weekend.
And the other
We
thing
we
is,
don't have any field check-in, check-out for the high school, so I mean, we can
even
create
if-
a procedure for
even if we
that.
collect fees, it's still going to be downtime, and we're still going to, the kids aren't going to be able to use it for the sports, which is what those fields are intended for. So,
Well, we're also finding we're having difficulty with lack of coverage even from our existing staff, wanting to be able to cover events, working overtime. So we're now hearing fewer people wanting to be involved in that process. And they're not required to work overtime.
No.
So we may need to visit the piece of the handbook to try to identify individuals that would be willing to qualify into the,
staff.
I mean, I'm going to go back to, it's a grass field. We don't restrict grass field at Wickland, at Bethany, at Cuesta, at Altamont. We should try to, we give the public no use of the high school at all. I don't see any reason they can't do a pickup soccer game there. It really is the only true soccer-sized field anyone would have that's not currently being used all weekend long between baseball, football, soccer. All the other fields are being used. And no, the CSD doesn't have the fields they should have for us. They don't have a soccer field. They don't have those kinds of things. We are still the only game in town. And to me is kind of frustrating that you can't even do a pickup soccer game in the grass between the baseball and softball field.
I think we would just need to decide who can help check out those facilities or
Well,
check
that,
out the
and like I said,
fields.
that's for non-permitted use. I'm just talking about for permitted use and stuff like that. That's a whole different thing. I think we should try to provide those where we can. But
So the thing you have to remember too is that because the high school fields are a little bit different, they're locked. They now have locked gates all around. And so pickup game, you're talking about somebody being there to unlock. We don't have staff that, like you heard, that even want to work. And so even for possible reserved usage, you're going to have to find somebody. And we probably, as a district and the facilities group, might want to think about putting a clause in that use that says if we don't have the available staff to cover it, then it's got to be canceled. How else will we supervise our own facilities? I mean, we don't have, the more we open the fields, the more, I get it, you want to open the field, but the more fields we open, the more personnel it takes, the more time it takes. And, like you were saying before, those grass fields are used on a pretty regular basis by fields that are practicing. And the other thing you have to remember is you open up those grass fields, our varsity baseball field is locked, but the softball field is wide open. And those infields are expensive with the clay and the maintenance of that. And you're kidding yourself if you think we open the grass fields and people are just going to stay off of the softball field. So, yeah. Oh, and the other issue is there are no restrooms. The only restrooms out on that field are inside the C building, which is the big classroom building, and you would have to open the building. There's nowhere we went out there last year and walked it 2 or 3 times. There's nowhere to drop porta potties anywhere out there.
yeah.
It's a problem now. Yeah.
You mean for baseball? Yeah.
What do we-
Yeah, so when we have our own games, we have to leave our building open in order for people to go. And everybody, when grandpa comes to the game and has to use the restroom, you mean I got to walk all the way over there to go to the restroom? And we say, sorry.
Watched that happen actually at the baseball game. And
There's not a whole lot more we can do about it because you can't get one of those trucks out there. There's no
access.
that sidewalk that goes out and around the back is, big enough for 2 people. That's about it. So it's rough being able to figure out how to make that an area that's actually usable, especially for, for us alone, and then let alone having to open it up to outside organizations, renting it and making sure we have personnel and that it's appropriately supervised during the day or the event.
you remember if we have bathrooms in the last phase of construction?
There are not. There's a storage shed that will be out back there behind the C building, but it did not include restrooms at all.
Could we use that though as a short-term solution for the baseball and football to put some porta potties there, put the fence, take the fence back a little bit, get rid of some of that weed that's all that's there and at least put porta potties in. 'Cause
Where,
that-
weeds where?
we have the fenced in, it's not weeds, sorry, it's not weeds, it's the tan bark stuff, right? We have tan bark in all the areas that are fenced off for future construction, right? The tennis
yeah,
courts, the
They're
theaters.
for the library,
The
and the
co-ed
theater.
building, the arts and craft building.
There's
Where
no,
we
Educational
would
arts.
put the storage unit, there's gotta be something there, whether it's
no,
open space.
it's grass right now.
It's grass, so why not use that as a place to put the porta potties for our teams?
The problem is you can't get trucks in.
So just as a curiosity then, if we can't get.
I guess you could get a truck in on that fire lane right there and put it there. I mean,
I'm
it's
just trying to
still,
think, like I said,
it's
this is
just
really
as
just
far
for our
away.
teams. This is it? I'm trying to picture where it even is, and from the baseball field, you're walking across the baseball field, the soccer field, the softball field to even get to that area, right? I mean, it's all the way across.
Anywhere where you could put a porta potty, you could get into the building by the time you get over there, so.
Right.
might as well just
But it's the idea.
The only issue is, if you have a porta potty, then the reason we didn't put it down is because we weren't renting it to outside organizations and we could handle the supervision of the restrooms there. Because it's just as far to go to a porta potty that's sitting next to the C building. I would point to the fact that it's a very beautiful campus.
Oh, I'm just
And putting a
seriously,
porta potty outside some teacher's window. I mean, you go upstairs. I don't know if you've been upstairs in the C building and look out those back windows. It's beautiful. You can see all the way to the hills. But anyway, yeah,
So in the next in the next construction phase, there are still not going to be restrooms near the bathroom. Is that correct?
not any more restrooms in the back of campus.
Shouldn't the board itself be looking at that, not necessarily the facilities use committee? I'm not really sure.
I don't know
we
if
can
the
do about
board
it now.
knows there's an issue.
I mean, it sounds like there might be an issue.
but I don't even know
Well,
that there's anything we do
it's
about
only
it
an
now.
issue if we allow outside users to use the facilities. Because right now, I mean, anywhere we could put a porta potty, like I said, people can get into the building, which if it's our groups, we have control of those facilities and we can leave them open.
But he just gave an example of where Grandpa, for example, in order to get to a bathroom, had to go across the entire place in order to get to a building. So might it not be worth looking at adding a permanent bathroom fixture over there somewhere? I'm not sure if there's space. I haven't looked at the entirety of the plans, but it seems like you might want a bathroom somewhere near where the fields are, right? I mean, that seems like an issue the board might want to look at, not necessarily this committee.
I don't know. It's probably not possible.
There have to be money and then money is the big.
You need money to do the whole phase anyway, so I mean,
It's a whole other thing.
Well, the problem that we would have is that would be something, because the plans have already been approved. So, well, not
No, we'd
just
have to go
that,
back to
you'd have to
DSA.
resubmit new plans and start all over again. The state DSA is that whole process.
Architect fees.
This is what, yes, when you look at architecture, go, what happened there?
I mean, and what it comes down to is the developer gave us the minimum square footage of land. I mean, if you look at a high school campus, they tell you that it should be from this to this, and whatever the lowest number was, that's what we got. So, because of that, we're trying to have to run a high school and everything goes along with it, with the smallest piece of property, there's just no real estate.
But is there not a parking lot near that area? I mean, you could open the fence up, no?
No,
It's on
No.
street parking.
the street, yeah. It all backs right up to the street. It backs right up to the houses that are gonna go in there in that next neighborhood.
Just buy a lot.
Yeah, we'd have to buy a lot. We'll pony up. We'll take up a collection.
Buy a house and then.
Yeah,
There you go, that's
Buy a house,
I
it's
think
fine.
I'm gonna buy that house and charge 50
It's like baseball locker rooms at that point, right? It's fine.
2.5 bathrooms, right?
I will make enough money to buy us the theater just by charging for people to use the bathroom at the house right on the campus.
I like it.
So, I mean, I think then the community is eventually going to ask if we don't think we can ever open up that space up for public use because A, we don't want the fields to be hurt for the teams, and B, there's no way to put a restroom there without opening up a nearby building. If we're never going to do that, why don't we just make a statement that says that we're not going to do that?
I think that's where we're at. I think that needs to be the statement. I mean, of course, the board would need to support that, but I think as far as a recommendation to the board, I feel like I'm in a position that I can make that recommendation. I'd like to know how everyone else on the committee feels.
No, I feel No,
I know you don't want to, but
Well, I'm just not sure the logistics allow us to want to open it up. Is the problem? I'm sure that I'm with Shane in that I'd rather have the community use everything. But if there's no restrooms there, then I think we all know what's going to happen. And if the fields themselves are never going to be hurt, maybe you could make accommodations for rentals. But I'm not sure you'd ever want to open it up for public use at that point. But
I think I don't.
even rentals, you'd have to open up the building along with it. Rentals are even harder than actual public use would be, because at least with public, you could say, well, you can do a pickup soccer game, but there's no, any more than there's no bathrooms that you can use at Wickland or any of the other schools. If it's a public use, when it's permitted, there's no way we could do it. They're not,
But once
to
it's
have an
open-
all-day activity there, to have a soccer tournament at that field, for example, and not have a restroom for anyone to use, or even a place to put a porta potty, it's just not feasible.
Right. Now, we do, obviously, the fields are there for the high school use, considered a tier one. All our foundations are also considered a tier one, depending on the kind of activity that they have. So I think we could almost review them on a case-by-case, tier one only. If it's,
But even
if
then,
it's
they'd
a
still
school
have no bathrooms.
foundation, true.
What are they
Well,
gonna do
unless, if it's a tier one organization, they are connected to the school. If the tier one organization is able to find, I think what we have to do is really try and work with our staff and encourage our staff to get more involved and to be, see if they can make themselves available to.
Be able to watch over the restroom being opened. It is a distance, but, it's what our existing high school students do now.
it's inside the building, right?
It's inside the building. So I'd imagine there would be fees incurred if it was outside custodial, normal hours, taking them away
Financial
from their
fees.
schedule.
It's overtime.
Well, we set a restroom fee a few evenings ago anyway for Wickland, right? So it'd probably be the same fee. Though it might not be because you have to open the whole building as opposed to the restrooms at Wickland, which are outside.
It could wander.
Well, the
have
good
to
part of
be
that is
monitored.
there's still, everything else is still secured because they've got the code keys
True.
and stuff at the doors. It's not as, wide open as it would sound, but I'm still not wanting them walking up and down the hallways either. We don't have any way to prevent that at all.
Well, we don't have any pressing reason why we have to address this right now unless,
No.
if there is a request,
Which we have
might-
one now. No, we don't. Okay.
so
For the
I think
soccer or baseball
when we
fields.
get the request, I think at that point is when we need to start trying to work out the logistics to see if we can make it work. And the only way I see this working is on a case-by-case basis.
I don't think anyone would make a request right now since they know the answer is no. That's
kinda what I'm
that's the problem. You're saying we're not going to look at it until someone makes a request, but no one's really going to make a request because maybe they go on the site and they see it's not even available. Maybe they look on Facebook and they see, people on the facilities committee going, yeah, no, you can't use the fields. So why would they make the request? So I don't think we can wait for someone to make the request before we decide whether or not we would even look at the request.
Well, and to be quite honest, if someone does make a request, it's going to be a difficult process because there's going to be a lot of logistical issues we're going to have to work through to make it happen. And
Yeah, I agree.
boy, you got to start weighing, is it worth it? Especially when, there are other facilities,
There are some, yeah, no,
you know,
absolutely.
so.
But didn't you say that someone at Lambersville wanted the softball field? So we have a inquiry to make a request? Like, would we even entertain a request?
That's about as
Yes,
far as
they,
we would
they
get
were
right now.
questioning if it was possible, and I said no, that we would bring it tonight to discuss, because right now, it's not a possibility, if it was,
What do they want it for how long?
for
What's the deal?
baseball. It's actually Coach Mack.
Well, girls softball in town also wanted to know if they could reserve the high school softball fields. They didn't put in a request either because they talked to us and they found out that you couldn't. So, certainly there have been inquiries at this point. So this might be the time to discuss it, or it might be the time to make it an
Coach
item
Mack
on the
wanted
next
it
one.
for
I don't know.
something?
Yeah, for practice.
See, to me, practice is a different thing. I think we could find a way to accommodate that because it's like, look, you're going to have your practice and just know there's no restrooms. If that's not going to work, it's not going to work.
What kind of organization is it?
It was the Lambersville School Foundation just grabbed me and passing it back to school night. So it wasn't anything formal put to me. I can find more information and then get back to you.
Because I think, my personal feeling is I don't think we should be looking at anything outside of a tier one organization.
No,
That was what I
don't have a
was thinking.
choice. We don't really have a choice.
Of course, we do not want them to have a high-risk activity on those fields to damage them.
Like
No,
a
it's
sport?
softball. You play softball on the softball field.
That's
There's
what we want
nothing
them
else to do.
use it for, not
Yes,
just,
you are playing softball. This is
that
not
we need to
for,
make sure it's clear.
yes.
Okay, so
Okay.
we'll just come back to this when there's more information. And how about the mobile vendor procedures?
That was something that Lori had pointed out, and let's see, she kind of created a sample in your packet was another school district, but I'm passing what I'll share this.
Elk Grove, huh?
Because obviously, we have seen these vendors coming in, and I know I've noticed it on Facebook as well. We have groups that say they're going to be doing this, and then all of a sudden we see a Facebook picture of barbecuing. And of course, that could bump them into a different tier. But Lori, did you want to speak to?
Yes, it's mostly, they're starting to become more and more popular because there isn't here, anything here for people to have. So as these mobile food vendors come in from the different site to different site, sometimes they'll fill out the application, mobile food vendors will show up, I didn't know about them, so we don't have a designated area for them. So I don't know who they are. Usually you can get like a business license to make sure that they're current, a health inspection to make sure it's okay. Are they storing their propane so many feet away from the building so that if something does happen, it doesn't become impactful to our facility or our people? It was just a recommendation on maybe trying to rein them in a little bit so that we have a designated area when they have them at the high school or at the elementary schools where it's kept off to one side so they're not blocking traffic. It was just a recommendation. I thought it was kind of neat that Elk Grove did something like that, but we're getting more and more of them here.
Sure. I know that at the Bethany Back to School night, they were blocking the entrance to the actual school itself, not the parking lot, but to the actual school itself. There was 3 of them at that event, but
And that's, the question for me is, how are they coming on? What are they coming on for? Because, for example, at the high school, I know they usually have more than 3 vendors, but the boosters are bringing them in, and there's a portion of whatever they're selling that's coming back in. So, to me, we're talking about fundraising, or at least a portion of it that's going to fundraising, which is appreciated. And I would hate to see a policy come in and limit that. But we had high risk. They had a wood-fired pizza oven, which, by the way, was great pizza, if anyone was there.
it was good pizza.
It was good pizza. A grill, but then also electrical, for a microwave, and we're running that for. To me, that was actually more dangerous than the wood-fired pizza because you've got a electrical cord running across a ton of stuff, and who knows if it's secured properly and all the rest of that stuff. So whatever policy we do, we have to make sure we're looking at, okay, wait, there's also not just the people coming in who are doing it purely for profit, but at events that they're doing it and going through the school foundations to get it. I believe we should look at it like a city permitted activity where mobile food vendors aren't allowed on our facilities without one of our permits. If they try to come on, that's trespassing. We call the cops and ask them to leave. If they're invited to Wickland School Foundation and it's one of the ones you wanted to come and it's someone else trying to come in and poach those people, I don't think that should be allowed.
Well, that's the whole purpose of this.
But I also would hate to see us limited to 3 where if the high school boosters can get 5 or 6 and we can accommodate it.
Maybe we should put elementary versus, 3 for the elementary. However many.
I guess my question is, what's the rationale behind that policy, behind no more than 3 food vendors that allowed at each event?
Just what Elk Grove had, right?
Yeah, it was just what Elk Grove did.
This is
But
just
I
an
think if
example.
we have it more contained where we know the area, our custodians know the area, this is where it gets set up, we might have a little more flexibility with them. I just, I don't want anybody to get shoved out of fundraising. It's important. That's where they get a lot of their money.
I think if we just set up an application process like we would for anything else, where they've gone through it, they apply to be here, part of, if it's a fundraising event or not, they've at least gone through all the stuff, then we can control it. Like, you know what? No, we can't have 5 people in Wickland's parking lot or Bethany's parking lot because no one's going to be able to get in and out of the school.
We could just look at the sites and designate site areas for mobile food vendors, though.
I don't know. I mean, do we need to be that restrictive, or is that something that we can leave to the site administrator?
Lavinia's going to come up.
So just for clarification, are you saying that they don't need to go through, have the health license or the business license if they're a part of the boosters?
Oh, they should.
I think they do.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because that's what I want too.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way we can control this. Otherwise, it's going to be a free-for-all.
Oh, I'm definitely in agreement.
Yeah, if I don't need a license, or I'll just be one. I'll go ahead and start showing up and doing the tri-tips and
I
stuff
got a little
like that.
pick 'em up.
Make
I got
a
a
few
little
extra
pickup
bucks, and I'll get some to the boosters. I'm good with it.
A grill in the
I got a
back.
grill, absolutely. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, no.
Does that mean you can't do that?
That's the piece that's lacking right now is we have no control. They just show up and we just assume they're legit, and we don't have any idea.
And that's why making them get a permit to us would be, do you have your license? Do you have your health safety certificates? Do you have all those things? Then yes, you get granted a permit. Or you don't have those things? No, you're not allowed on our campus during this event. And then we could also start adding them to the, unapproved use folks and all that kind of stuff.
I think as far as the numbers are concerned, we as a committee need to work with each one of the individual staffs at those schools.
Yep.
And so that we can come up with an exact number, what they feel comfortable with and we feel comfortable with, whether it be 3 at Bethany and 5 at the high school, whatever it is. We need to have that determined up front.
Besides which, no matter what we do, the rules are going to have to be different because the Lammersville is going to have a different set of rules just because of the nature of their parking lot and the size. There's just no way you could, 3 food trucks is going to be really complicated to park over there and still give people access to the school.
I mean, do we need to set policy on that? Can't we just?
I don't think so.
Can't we just make it, say that it's case by case, that the site administrator has to?
Yeah, that's what I think. They just have to get approval from the committee and we go through the site administrator.
I think if we left it to that they have to submit the application 30 days prior with the health permit and the business license, case by case, they got to work it out with the site administrator and, make it work.
Yep, I agree.
I
Sorry,
don't
we-
think we
Sounds
need to
good.
be super restrictive, but I think that we need to have, there needs to be some checks and balances, but I don't think we need to make it super restrictive.
So I guess my question then would be, a lot of the school foundations will do after-school snacks on Fridays, for example, using shaved ice places. So you're saying that the shaved ice places would need to submit a business license and the whatnot 30 days in advance, even though they're probably not even actually reserving a facility?
What kind of place, what do you mean, is it a truck?
Yeah,
Well,
So
it's a go-kart.
literally will be
what
a
if
truck.
at the same time that the boosters or the foundations are submitting their fundraiser requests for approval, what if at the same time they give me the list and I start reaching out to them to gather the information so that it's all approved at the same time and we have one complete packet?
Oh, just kind of a list of all the vendors we hope to use this year?
Yeah, and I can reach out to them and say, we know you may be on our premise. Here's the information that I need from you. Please submit it in, and then I can attach it to the packet that's been approved, and it's all backup and documentation with it.
Okay.
Just an idea.
You're awesome.
That's one of the, and
But I'll talk to the other presidents too. Sure I can get a list for most of us.
so, as far as a,
You can go for it because they don't have a physical card.
so as far as a policy, what do we want to? You want to,
Why don't I, instead of doing something like that, why don't I work with Alvina and Jim and we come up with a process? And then that way we can bring the process to the site administrators and see if they feel comfortable with that. And then I have, everything that followed the process and then we can implement into the handbook.
yeah, that's a good idea. Okay,
We're not going to try to adopt this particular one
no,
right
I
now?
think
Okay.
we're going to do something a little more,
And I
a little
won't-
less restrictive and more user-friendly, but get something and then adopt it into our handbook, so then it's consistent with the rest of our policy.
Then I will not go through this point by point.
Nice. Yeah, Okay, item B is the Mountain House High School PTSA culinary class fundraiser.
So this is a fundraiser that was approved, and it is basically the PTSA, the VAPA booster, would like to hold culinary classes in our culinary classroom at the high school with community members to come in and teach the class with community members and families. How do I handle that?
Well, do they need licenses?
Well,
We don't have that.
we've talked to Bernie. Bernie mentioned very specifically about the safe food handling requirements and all the other stuff to be able to get to our facilities. And I know she was fairly adamant. I believe her position was not too different than Ms. Woods' position on use of the fields, which is please keep people out of my kitchen.
It's the actual
And that's what I'm
classroom,
saying,
it's not the
same.
kitchen.
So has she been made aware of this? What's her position on it?
This is not the kitchen.
It's a
This is the
classroom.
culinary arts classroom.
Oh,
Oh,
But
this
it
is
still
not the
has
kitchen.
stoves
I
right
would
then.
assume
It
it's
still
the
has,
kitchen.
Stoves and oven, but it's
it's like
a
the home ec
culinary
room.
It's a home ec room.
ooh,
Okay.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, that's
that's a
different.
different thing.
Yes.
It's a little different.
So in
So
essence,
I don't know how to handle it. 'cause
So I'm
it's not
going,
our-
they
it's
do
not in our
not, Bernie does
handbook.
not want them in the kitchen at all.
No.
so in essence, they want to use a classroom.
Yes. It has ovens and stoves. It's to cook. It's like a home ec room.
We should allow that.
They're using outside vendors.
Well, it's community members coming in to teach a class or a student or a little, or a
There's no
child.
profit anywhere.
Correct.
It's all,
It's for fundraising. They paid to have the class, but they pay it to PTSA. So it's a
right, but there's not an
fundraiser.
outside, no one's getting paid to
Right.
provide a service.
The person teaching is not getting paid. It's a volunteer coming to teach a cooking class, and then you pay the people who come pay to take the class. So it's all the proceeds go to PTSA.
Is this weekday or weekend?
I think it's weekday.
We hadn't gotten that far because I wasn't sure how to handle
It's
it.
weekday.
Okay.
So I think it's
mean,
weekday.
It sounds like a tier one organization for using a classroom, is
advertised.
what it sounds like to me.
I
Okay.
mean, a specialized classroom, it's, do we have rules already for like the science classrooms if they
No.
wanted to come in?
No, because we weren't allowing them out to use.
That's the policy, no
Well, but
use.
if someone wanted to do something similar where they wanted to teach a robotics class or a science class as a fundraiser.
Right, so I would,
It's using gas, it's
Right now,
similar
it's-
stuff.
Right now, it's not.
Right, it's
allowed.
not allowed.
So I
I
think
would,
this is an exception.
yeah, and I would suggest that it's just the use of the classroom and the equipment that's out. But that, just like any other room, if somebody rents our fields, we don't say, here's the balls and
Right.
the other stuff. It's just like, you get the room.
Well, let me ask you this question. If another organization comes and says, hey, we want to rent the culinary room, are we allowing that? You're okay?
Beyond tier one?
I don't, that's a good question.
And that's, it's going to come up. So, I mean, while we're having the conversation, we might as well just address it now. If we have these spaces that are specialized areas that someone might want to use, if they say, oh, the kitchen, I can't use the kitchen, but, oh, I can use this culinary arts or culinary room, I want to use that. I
Wanna
want to
make
rent
money
that.
for
I
me.
would, yeah. I would say, no, I wouldn't want that. I would, tier one organizations, school-related organizations who are using it for internal fundraising, but using it like, I want to come in and cook 6 turkeys at the same time so I can sell them this Thanksgiving.
Yeah, sure.
Or, not even that, just, I have a huge family coming, I want to come and use a school to cook my food and then take it to my house for them to eat.
Well, I mean,
do that for Thanksgiving,
those
please?
people would
Yeah,
have to have
everyone's
insurance, and I mean, the likelihood of that happening. I'm worried more about like a catering company.
That's what I'm worried about
who
too. Someone who
is
wants to
like,
start a little catering
I
company.
need an extra kitchen because we're doing this big catering thing, and I'm going to use that room. Sure. Yeah, I would be adverse to that.
So
So, tier one organization, so this just me, it's an amendment to the handbook. So tier one organizations, let's think about all tier one organizations.
And if doesn't become a,
Yeah, that's a very good
using
point.
equipment, usually they're tier two
are
A. Let's see.
Cub Scouts a
Well,
tier
but
one
it's-
organization, or are they tier two?
They're 2A, aren't they?
Cub Scouts are 2A.
They're two A.
And again, that's, like you said, that's something I would want to see them be able to use it for too, is if you wanted to get a cooking merit badge or
Well, hold on a second.
this is me.
Okay, I mean, from a policy standpoint, I don't know if I agree with
See,
that.
tier one, official school parent club, high-risk activity include but not limited to athletic events, cooking,
Cooking, that'll be a high risk. so it
changes
bumps
them
up
to a tier two
takes
A.
them to the next tier.
Well, under that rule, wouldn't we then not allow anyone?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
In those spaces. Well,
But the culinary, we never talked about the culinary arts class and
We
cooking in
always-
the classroom.
We just added cooking like last meeting, which makes it so we can't say just tier one because anyone who would cook would automatically
Exactly.
be a tier 2A, right? So we're sort of in a.
and I think that's the issue at hand that we kind of need to visit is, do we make an exception to the handbook, or do we just make it a case-by-case, visit it, and just make it approval from the committee level?
We could say cooking not inside of a designated classroom or something like that.
Make it a 2A. That's what I'm thinking too, this is, the whole point to that was it's an outdoor, uncontrolled open flame as opposed to a controlled
classroom, what it's
structure
for.
with, I'm sure it's got all the normal safety precautions of, the vents and the hoods and the sprinklers and all the rest of that stuff.
Well, no, because we also were talking about the kitchens at the K-8 schools.
I think we didn't allow anyone but tier one to use the kitchens at the sites.
But if they're cooking in the kitchen, then it's not tier 1 anymore, they're cooking.
Does it go
Right,
to 2A?
but the foundations, we've recognized them as a tier one. And if they want to use the kitchen, then they hire the food service staff to come into the kitchen.
They have to pay for a food service worker to be there the entire time to supervise.
So I guess the wording would be if they have been recognized as a tier one. Because we obviously have groups that are always a tier two A.
We're still not really talking about the kitchen, though. We could make it say cooking except in designated classrooms or designated
We could
home
be
economic.
We only have
Culinary.
one, so we
We
can
only
make
have
it
one, so we could
specific.
specify the
We
very
could specify
specific
the
rule.
culinary.
Except for this spot. I mean, as opposed to, we're not really talking about the kitchen. If we don't mention the kitchen, then the kitchen is still required for the food service. We could just say, except for in Ben's kitchen.
So, hey, Ben, so if a elementary school foundation says they want to come over and cook, do you feel that there needs to be anyone monitoring that, or they get the keys and they get it like anybody else? I mean, I'm asking the question. I don't know. I don't know what your- I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on
I
it.
think that there are, there's custodial staff there if they're needed. And, I think that the site and the teacher, I can get together with the teacher and we can talk about, cleanliness when you're done. And I think that has to do with all of the facilities. You have to leave it the same way you found it and stuff like that. So I don't think that there's a problem in that regard. And if Bethany School Foundation or Wickland School Foundation want to do their own cooking classes, I don't care.
Okay. Okay, that helps. Thank you. So then we can take this back to the board with the I guess adding language.
Yeah, when are we gonna get
about the culinary room?
Talk to the board. I will.
Everyone agree with that? We'll take this back to the full board, adding the language of tier 1 organizations in the culinary arts classroom at the high school. We can be specific since we only have one.
And we probably do want to have the instructor who's in that classroom to approve those tier 1s through you, right?
Oh, the site would have to anyway, right? Doesn't the site have to
Right,
approve?
Mr. Faubert has to approve.
There's already, that process is built into the system already, right?
Okay, yes.
Maybe she could also write up like a little cheat sheet for the organizations as well. When you book it, you get sent a little cheat sheet that says like, here's the rules for using the home ec room.
Well, it's this,
We do that with the state.
You do that anyway?
yeah, it's a site thing, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, it's just, I guess you do it for everything, so you'll just do a new one for this. Okay.
Okay. Wow, that was easy.
I might make that 8 o'clock meeting.
Item C is Mountain House High School coaches registration with AAU sports organizations.
And this is something that I know Lori Robertson and Lavinia Woods have been discussing about our high school coaches. So I don't know which of you two want to speak to it.
The league that we're in has certain rules during off-season or out-of-season and limited period to where we are not allowed as a high school organization to practice. None of the other schools, well, very few other leagues have that rule. So basically what it means is during out-of-season or limited period, schools that we are competing against are practicing when we're not able to. The only way that our students would be able to practice is under an AAU organization. Part of the problem is that we don't rent out the facilities during the summer to AAU organizations. So our basketball teams, some of our sports teams are not having the same opportunities to practice their skills, to work as a team as other teams that we play against. Part of my concern in this too is that we're not going to be in this league forever. So when we go out and we start playing against bigger schools, and yeah, then we'll be able to, but our players are still getting a little bit behind compared to everyone else. So my concern or question is there a way that a high school-based AAU team could have the opportunity to use it? Again, it would be coaches that are still on staff. AAU would have their own insurance. They would pay the rental fees. It just means that our coaches could practice with their teams in accordance with our league rules and CIF rules and have access to a facility.
So the issue is because the facilities aren't available during summertime, right? So I think that's just an exception to the rule, so every year just bring it to the committee for approval.
So,
I think
And
that's the easiest and cleanest way to do it, otherwise we're just gonna open ourselves up to,
Yeah. And then my question is so if they do it with the AAU, they would fall under the 1A umbrella because they are a school organization applying to an AAU so that they can have additional practice time so they don't get sanctioned during their season.
First, I worry that
Just a
that
question.
might run afoul of your rules. Because if we're in essence calling them a school organization, we could be then violating the league rules by having a school organization practice during off hours.
This is the way every other school in our league has an AAU team.
So
that
this
they-
is where,
and-
why
and
did
this
the
is-
coaches get together and say, hey,
No.
why do we have this stupid
I don't
rule?
understand. Honestly, I went to our league, our last meeting last week, and I asked them, why do we have this rule in place? Their reasoning is because they are smaller schools. This is their way to stop athletes from playing multiple or leaving one sport because the other sport is practicing and now they want to go practice with that sport. So they're afraid, like football, If basketball is practicing right now, some of the guys who play football won't play football because they'll want to go play basketball, which makes no sense to me. I'm right there with you, because then they say, we run it under AAU. Well, again, why do you have this rule in place? But they do, so I'm trying to follow the rule and do what they do and have an AAU team. Yeah, and then leave the league, yes.
How long?
Well,
Can we leave the
who's
league
gonna
next
be-
year?
I wish.
Who would be putting in the facility use request?
The coaches, the coaches that pay for an AAU organization would have to put in a facilities request. They would have to get their insurance through AAU, which AAU
So
provides.
it's AAU organization.
Correct. The
I think
athletes,
wherever that falls in the tier structure. I don't think it's a tier 1 organization.
So that'd be a tier 2A, so we would be charging our own coaches who don't.
and that's, I'm fine with
Is
that.
that okay?
I'm fine with
Okay.
that, because
You're gonna charge the
AAU,
players anyway.
to my knowledge, AAU, the athletes have to pay to be on the team, and AAU helps with the rental fees. So that's not a concern. They have to pay the rental fees. They cannot use our equipment. They cannot use our uniforms. So those rules would still go into effect.
If I could clarify then, is it our coaches coaching an AAU team? Or
It's
is it,
our coaches coaching our players under an AAU team so that they can still practice as a team within our league rules.
Yes, Shane.
I can see, I foresee the line of competitive teams coming in, to say, well, yes, we have more than half of our team from your school, so why can't we meet these same criterias? So if we're going to set a policy that says it has to be our coaching staff coaching those teams, then I think that's our cleanest way to do it.
But I
'cause as
also
far
have
as I know-
coaching staff that coaches for other AAU organizations within Mountain House, and their teams are almost 100% Mountain
And
House
that's,
kids.
so like I'm saying, where do we draw the line? Is it gotta be 100% our players?
We draw the line at the high school level, that the team has to be a high school age team with 80 to 90% of the players coming from Mountain House High School. That would reduce the number of requests that come across for AAU.
And that's why I'm
I
asking
think,
about that.
in my mind right now, I see this conversation shifting to, well, wait a minute, if we're opening it up for this sports organization, why don't we continue to open up the high school for other sports organizations? And then it just comes down to who
Well,
gets the use.
That's exactly the conversation that's going to occur.
yes, it is. And as long as we can set it up where we can say, it's our coaches coaching our kids at a high enough percentage, I think we can still come back and say, this is where it works out. But I do foresee a time where, one of our coaches, it won't be one of our coaches, and I'm going to go, my daughter plays for West Coast. That's a comp team. They've got a team that's getting comprised of almost all our girls. Altamont, the volleyball team, has got more than half of their team is our girls, but not our coaches.
So one way around that, in all honesty, if it's our coaches, they will still have, all the coaches still have their card key. They still have access to the facility. So we don't need custodians to let them in. We don't need custodians to have them check out. They're responsible for the facilities just like they are any other day that they come in. An outside organization doesn't have that same access.
But it's going to come to us that that's not reasonable. If again, and I can only use my daughter's example because it's one I can see coming up because they've been begging us for our facilities for the last 2 years. If we get more than half of our team from Mountain House and
High
they want to
school.
use those facilities, yes, Mountain House high school age kids, and they want to use the facilities, why is it? It's because their coach has special access. That doesn't seem equitable. And again, it is something we're going to have to face. And if we come up with just a strict policy, go and hire one of our coaches. Go get one of the assistant coaches. Bring someone onto your staff to help make this truly part of our team. What's gonna prevent them from doing that? Is it only the head coaches? What about assistant coaches? What about do we bring in kids that are in college doing assistant coaching or what am I thinking, internships or that kind of stuff? Where do we draw the line at what that all means? If we're going to set an exception, we got to make sure it's ironclad because that's what people do. They look for ways around things. They want to try to find a way they can get wormed in. And again, with no other facility that they can use like our fields or our gyms, they're going to want to use it.
We do have quite a few Tier 2A groups that have been established in this community for a very long time.
Yes. So, I mean, isn't Reno one of the coaches? And he also coaches on the Wolverines, so he'll have an in. But
His high
but again,
school
I go
team.
back to. But I go back to the junior Mustangs. They don't have any staff on. So what if they've got? I
not
guess
a
they
high
wouldn't do it
school
because
level.
they don't have any players at the high school level.
The junior Mustangs?
I don't know. Honestly, I haven't followed the football at all. But volleyball will, soccer will, baseball will.
The Royal Kings will.
Right. So I mean, there are a bunch of that we're going to have high school age kids. We're going to have to set a policy. I think that's real concrete. But I agree with you. It's a ridiculous rule. We're putting our kids at a competitive disadvantage, and this is the point of this. We got to find a way to get our kids an opportunity to get the practice time.
And I agree with you, there are going to be questions, because I've been trying to figure out how can we do this with the other schools in our league. They don't have the limitation of no AAU rentals during summer, because it's one of the heavier times for AAU rental for indoor facilities.
Well, my initial thought was, okay, well, we just remove that restriction and say that we allow rentals. But then the next question is, well, wait a minute, are there organizations that can bump that organization based on our current policy?
Shouldn't be any tier ones. They should all be tier 2As.
Well, no, but this is going to be a tier 2A organization also.
I'm saying they should
So
all be
they'll-
tier
They'll
2As.
tie for the 2A, so it goes to their 501c3 nonprofit status, and we don't know. We don't know the dates.
And you said these practices would take place during what period?
Actually, it's going to be part-time during the school year and then during the summer.
During the summer, okay. And then that changes because our existing policy is not to use the facilities during
Right,
summer.
and
That's the
that's why it's an
problem.
issue now. That's why they're here now, is because of that specific issue, is do we change, do we make the exception for the organization?
During the school year,
or do
it's
we
not a
change
problem,
policy?
other than sharing the gym, finding time for them.
Correct.
During the summer, because we don't rent to AAU, they have no access. And if our Mountain House programs go to Tracy, they are going to be low man on the totem pole because they're not a Tracy organization, which is the problem I'm having trying to rent a facility for another event with Tracy.
So you're talking about basketball, volleyball, for
Any
indoor.
of our, but mainly I'm talking about basketball and
Basketball's
volleyball.
AAU. But
Right.
that we'd have to try to find out that's the other thing is we can't just call it AAU because it's not AAU for volleyball. And I'm going to say this. Then does that mean if we're going to let them use the indoor facilities, do we not let the soccer teams use the outdoor facilities if they have high school age kids?
Well, that's not going to be as much of an issue. Well, let me think about that one. I'm thinking about when soccer changes to winter.
Could we actually even put in such an exception that says you could only rent if you were an employee of LUSD or our coaches' employees? Sorry.
They are.
Yes, they are.
You could maybe put in a provision about how summer use can only be allowed for employees of
I think all
LUSD.
I think we make the exception.
Yeah, I think they have to come before the committee.
It's just going to have to come before the
Yep.
committee each year
agree.
or
Because
before
it-
each season, and we just make the exception and deal with the repercussions.
'Cause, I mean, if we
But-
set a 90% standard and a team is at 80% and no one's using it, why shouldn't we, find a way? I want to set something that allows our kids to be able to do it and narrows the focus enough that it doesn't open it up to everybody, but it can't be so narrow that, like I say, if they're one kid short of 80%, we don't want to let our kids use it now, even though it meets the coach standards, it meets most of those kids, the vast majority of them are from Mountain House and are our high school kids. I think that, Matt, you're probably right. The best thing to do is bring them before the committee, before the end of the school year, so that they can get on a list, we can look at it, and we can approve it at that point.
Well, I mean, I can tell you kind of my thought process through this whole thing is, initially I thought, okay, well, why did we restrict access in the summer? It's so we could save energy on the HVAC system and keep the facilities clean. So we're throwing that out the window and we're letting an organization use it. Well, if we're letting somebody use it, then we're not doing those two things, so why don't we let other people use it too? So
I happen to agree,
And that's
but-
kind of,
I
that was
agree.
my thought process, but then I'm like, well, wait a minute, but if we do that, the reason why we're making the exception, they might get bumped. If there's another organization that comes in that, I mean, I don't know, AAU, I don't know what their,
Well, Mountain
Eight
House,
of-
each team is its 501c3. They're not incorporated under AAU in general. So the Mountain House Kings have a different date from the Wolverines, who have been around, I think, a little bit longer than the Kings
So,
have.
I mean, your worry is that the dodgeball tournament I want to run for the Wiccan School Foundation will kick out the basketball team, basically?
Actually, you would.
I know.
Yes, you would, because it's tier one, well, it's tier one organization.
Expect a dodgeball tournament, that's all I'm saying.
So, yeah,
I'll work with the
that's-
video, that's fine.
and so getting back to, if we're trying to accommodate our high school sports, the only way to do it is make the exception.
Yeah, and like I said,
Corey, you're absolutely right. I didn't even think about the tier one organizations.
I really do want to do a dodgeball tournament, but we can talk about that later. Should there be an upcharge for summertime? To cover those additional HVAC charges, those additional costs that we would incur, that we would normally incur not inside of summer?
I mean, yeah, it's built into the rental fees. I mean, I don't know,
It's the same way you were saying it would cover extra costs if it's already built in the rental fees and it's not really covering it. It's not an extra cost or an additional cost if it's already covered under the fees. So I know it's your wording, so I'm just curious.
yeah, I mean, we did it as a cost savings, so if we don't do it, I guess we're not saving costs, but we're not really, I don't know.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean,
have
it's
to
fine.
look at-
I
I
think the
mean,
exceptions are fine.
we kind of have to look at, but I thought we did that when we looked at what does it cost per hour to run that room. When we set our fees for the small gym and the big gym, we looked at, it's, the fees were kind of set up, I think, in mind of what that total cost would be so that it's revenue neutral as much as possible anyway.
So, to answer your question,
Yes.
yes, the only
In
way I
summary.
see, the only, in closing, the only way I see doing it is to make the exception, but also knowing that, I mean, it's incumbent upon whoever the committee is at the time.
Right.
The policy that we've been following is that if the entire committee doesn't agree, that it goes to the full board for the decision, and then you just got to present it to the full board. So that's the process.
All right.
So, unless you can think of anything better between now and then.
I'm trying.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. Item D, high-risk activities.
Well, I think we kind of covered that here and there throughout the, I don't think I have anything new to cover. Lori, I don't think we have anything new to cover under high-risk activities.
Sorry, can I go back for just 1 second? Should we set a meeting at which the summer requests are made,
Yes.
as opposed to
Should.
having to convene in like the middle of May, which we may or may not have, or what? There's probably months where we will not need to convene necessarily during
Well, I
summer.
mean, you're going to know ahead of time, right? You can do it several months in advance. It doesn't have to be the month before.
But no, I'm saying, could we say that they all need to be
They're
in
due by.
March, or
Yeah.
all the summer exception requests are in by March or April or whatever month you want, really.
And we'll review them each case by case.
I would
I
agree
just
to
think it
that.
might save us time in the long run.
And if for nothing else, it'll help Jim prepare. If he's got to do a different schedule and he's got to look at different things, which we weren't anticipating, if he looks at it and he says, we've only got one use, we're going to be okay. Oh my God, the thing is being used 6 hours a day, 6 days a week for a month.
I mean, but that's what the meeting's for, is
Right,
is to talk
but-
about those kinds
but-
of things. I don't know.
I would just hate to see it, like he says, it's May and we get the last application. And I think a deadline of, April to put in your submission that's 60 days before school ends, just because this is a special exception. Anybody's going to come in after that. We've got to be able to plan for it. We got to be able to staff for it. We got to be able to do a whole lot of other things. I don't see a reason not to do a deadline of 60 days before.
Would that be
April
reasonable, Lavinia?
meeting.
I think we could make that suggestion now. I think it's been
And the
good.
last day of school is what, May 20?
Right, see, so if
Six.
we do an April meeting to review that, that's only still giving them 30 days. So,
We would appreciate if it came in 60 days in advance.
For that, yeah.
Is the organization's going to have to use the locker rooms too? Okay. Because we need a minimum of 1 week per gym to go dark for resurfacing during the summer.
So 1, no locker rooms. 2, we can reduce it to just the small gym, so that way it's only one team practicing. And then during the week where we need to have the gym dark, we can do that. That's just a week where it's closed.
Okay, thank you. Sorry it's so complicated.
we do like to complicate.
Action items, item A is Barbara Watcott,
Youth ballet.
Youth Ballet.
What?
Tier 3 organization, Mountain House High School classroom, 8/25
To May 18th.
to May 18th,
I know, it's hard to read.
Tuesday and Wednesday, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. So exception to the rules, what they're looking for.
Correct, and Principal Faubert has already, the room is still set up from last year, so he's okay with her starting on August 25th. I just needed to ask permission.
Does anyone have any objections?
They used this room last year?
Yes, they
For
did.
ballet?
For little girl ballet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Me too.
Ben is okay with it.
Approved.
I had not seen one of these requests in a long time for birthday party.
Item B, Reju
Bargizi.
Varghese, thank you. Birthday party, Tier 3 organization, Cuesta MPR on September 19th. It's a Saturday from 5 to 9.
Yes.
And
Reju is a Mountain House community member. He's part of the Mountain House Malali Association, but because it's for his daughter's birthday party, he wanted to request it outside of the organization, so that.
Did it the right way.
Yeah, he did
this
it
is the right way. I guess the question is,
And it's open?
It's available.
It's available.
and it's because, the
It's a
reason it's coming
Saturday.
to us though is because of the date, oh, it's not October
Correct.
1st. Okay, it's prior to October 1st.
It's fine with me.
Fine with me,
Fine with me.
Approved.
especially because he did it the right way. I mean, he could have easily gone around this and used the Malal group.
Yes,
Everything that's along with the handbook for Tier 3, so he's got to pay for custodian and all that.
he knows.
All right. Item C, Altamont Pass Academy. We're trying to determine what tier it is. Mountain House High School large gym, Tuesday through Thursday, 3 to 6.
Yeah, Altamont Pass Academy is one of the AAU organizations that would fall under the umbrella for the high school. It was a high school basketball team where they registered through AAU. I denied them last year because I wasn't sure about the tier, and they wanted summer usage, but now we know they have to have a discussion.
So what are the dates?
Is it our team?
It would be Tuesday through Thursday, but it would be, he requested it starting in April, ending in June.
April.
That was last year, so I would think it would run in tandem this year.
Are there any indoor sports in April?
Wait, she's requesting now for April?
I don't think
No, I
so.
put him on there because I did it based on the conversation from up above, how it was going to handle with his organization, because I know they're going to apply.
Oh, there's not a request yet?
Not yet,
Okay.
but there will be.
Is this one of the aforementioned high school coaches?
I didn't hear you.
Is he a high school coach?
Yes, Scott McDonald.
So it's basically exactly what we were just talking about, except he wants to get it while school is still going.
But
Because their season is over.
yeah, and indoor facilities usually aren't used in April. There's no basketball or volleyball. They're pretty much over.
And I
by
didn't
then.
know what tier to put him under because they were an AAU.
Unless we do
not-
playoffs.
So 2A.
I guess already it would be
So
2A and they would
now
depend on
that I know that they're
availability,
2A, I didn't know they were that last year because they weren't a
Aztecs.
Mountain House organization.
Boys volleyball.
right? Boys play volleyball?
in
No, I'm kidding.
Spring. So,
When does that end?
the end of I don't know. We haven't done boys volleyball yet, but it's in the spring, so.
We don't
I
have
mean,
an-
but we'll have one boys volleyball team likely, not more than one. Well, I guess we could have a JV and varsity. You never know how, it depends on how many boys come out.
But he's not requesting it anyway, so we pretty
don't
much,
have a-
we
we
discussed
actually don't
this.
have a
We all agree
Yeah,
he's tier
we've-
2A.
We've
Okay.
shared with other organizations during our seasons before, it just, as long as it fits into our schedule, because we need first
Again,
preference.
you also have the big gym and the small gym, and if
Right,
you should be able to find a way to accommodate.
right.
Let's wait for the official
Yes.
request, and then we can
Okay.
deal with that.
Table it.
Yeah, so we'll table that, okay. And then item D is the facility use handbook revisions.
So
Yeah, just process. Did anyone have any objections to what the board approved? Okay, approved. And receiving a public comment.
I have one.
I don't think we actually have to use comment cards here, but it's okay.
Yeah, you might as well just do it anyway. Yeah.
Wow. John Domke? So this is not a true board meeting, it's a committee meeting, so we run a little looser operation.
Yeah, you've been here before.
Yeah, we get to, yeah, just
Brought my
reminding you
my
that.
buddy today.
it's kind of neat.
Yeah, I just had surgery a couple weeks ago on my hip. So we had put in a request with Lori to be added to the agenda tonight, and we got missed for the item 5 or 6 to be added in, but, because we talked last time about not being able to get into Bethany Gym until, I think it was October 12th or something like that, and what you guys were looking for was very specifics on what days and what times and that, so the request I put in with her, did you give it to all of them?
I gave it to Alvina.
So, yeah, so basically, Monday through Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m., extremely flexible. If the school needs a school, then we're out. But we'd like to use the gym starting September 1st until we can officially be approved October 12th or whatever it was. And then whatever dates the school needs the gym, we're not there. It seems very flexible.
Yeah, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, the reason it's not on the agenda is because there's no availability. Is that
Well,
right?
I missed it because I wasn't stationary for a few weeks. I
Okay.
was moving within the district, but I printed it today, and when I went through Bethany's calendar today, they have everything booked between volleyball and basketball now from 6 to 8 p.m. So it also bumped some of the Cub Scouts as well.
Yeah.
So normally they take 4 to 6, and now they're gonna take 4 to 8.
They're taking, the school is taking from 3 to 6 on certain, or I think it was 3 to 6 on Mondays, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 to 8.
Okay. So there's,
So the facilities are available after 8 o'clock Tuesday through Friday, and then on Mondays after 6.
So how long are they gonna be using it until 8?
It goes until the end of May because it goes from volleyball and then to basketball. So it shifts from one season now to the next.
Since we didn't know that ahead of time, we didn't know maybe there's another facility we could use, because 8 o'clock, we've got little kids that are 3 years old, they're not gonna come.
We're running into the same problem across the board with Altamont. Wickland has got most of theirs in, but Altamont is reserving from 3 to 6, Monday through Friday, for both sets of facilities.
refresh my memory,
We
what's
only
their,
want 6 to 8.
Well, but
what are the school's deadlines again for getting their stuff in? I
2 weeks
Passed.
ago.
2 weeks ago.
Passed,
passed, right?
yes.
I was
Yeah,
still
2 weeks.
approving some today
So
from
the problem that we're going to run into with the Domkeys is now that they've been elevated up to the tier 3, I'm going to have tier 2 organizations for basketball who are going to come run back to back for fall and spring, and it will push them out of any slot.
The problem
the
you're gonna have
K8.
is the Kings, the Wolverines.
And Mountain House Youth Basketball.
Right.
So the only other option, and I hadn't spoken to Ben because I literally read his email today, is if there was something available, maybe at the high school in a classroom.
We'd
That's
asked
not
for
being
the
used.
wrestling room last year, but
It's not.
We
for
weren't letting
grants.
anyone use the high school at all last
right.
year.
Because, yeah,
Wrestling would be perfect for us because it's got all the mats.
Got the mats.
All we
and-
do is, punch
And we
them.
don't use any equipment. We're barefoot, so we wouldn't ruin mats. We're just in our, our uniforms and.
Have we received any requests for
no,
that facility before?
they're the only ones.
Okay.
Ben?
Wait, do you know off the top of your, not to put you on the spot, do you know off the top of your head
No, no, putting you on the spot.
what your thoughts are on leasing or renting that space, the wrestling room, for an activity like this?
I haven't thought about it. I just know that during wrestling season, it's a cleaning issue because those boys are on the mat and there's a lot of problems with, what's that stuff called? Staph infection.
A staph infection.
What's that big skin infection that all the wrestlers get? So that's one issue.
The good stuff.
Those mats are pretty expensive.
When is wrestling season?
Huh?
When is wrestling
It's
season?
the winter, so it starts
Is that
in.
now?
No, November, December.
They'll start preseason in October, and they'll start doing wrestling and some things in November, and then they go strong in December and January through
I
February.
am not sure. Ben, is there any classrooms in the Mountain House High School that are empty where they could
We
leave
have
their
empty
mats?
classrooms.
We can do ballet, we can
How
probably do
big of a
karate.
space you need, though?
Well, we usually get the multi-purpose room, and we only use half of it.
Yeah, but even that's much bigger
Bigger
than
than a classroom, though.
I mean, a classroom,
Classrooms are probably 2/3 of this size.
When we were looking at commercial space, if they ever do make it, 1,500 square feet is what we're looking for, so that's about what you're showing us.
How big?
1,500 square feet.
my classrooms aren't quite that big, I
That would
don't think.
include, the
10 by,
back rooms and the
960?
office.
Right.
So we don't need floors.
I mean, I'm
960.
willing if you guys, if they want to come to the high school and take a look at our classrooms.
empty.
Multi-use room maybe, but it depends. I mean, there's a lot of things to move and.
Yeah,
it's-
multi
That's
wouldn't
not
be
a good option
A
for
good
them.
option for them. They need something stable.
Yeah. We have several empty classrooms this year that we could take a look at.
And if we could work this out with him, could we get a tentative approval to start September 1st, assuming he agrees to a room that we agree to? That way we don't gotta, because otherwise, what, the next meeting is the 10th?
Yeah, you'd lose
So.
a few weeks.
We'd like to
It's 2
start on the
weeks.
1st, that way we don't gotta come back and do this all over again.
I don't have a problem with that.
But
I'm
if
fine
Ben
with that.
approves it, yeah.
Ben's okay with it?
Yeah, so pending the approval of the high school, then we would approve the use. And that would just, all we're talking about is just for the month, right? And then after that would just be a normal request? Is that right?
As
For
soon
the
as we get
classroom? Yeah, so it would be, I'd put in the dates for the 1 month, and then we'd go in and once September 1st would open up, he'd go in and put in for the rest of the year.
Application and just, yeah, we just
Okay.
want that little time spot.
Sure, right.
Thank you very much.
Could I urge you, Mr. Domke, you were at the meeting that we were at last week with the Community Services District where they brought up a public facilities project where they were trying to talk about building a temporary facility, which I believe would be, fantastic for this option for you folks. And I would urge you as they're going along in this conversation to remind them of the difficulty you're having finding space available in this community despite their statements that there's plenty of facilities available here.
Primark comes to us and they have these great plans and then it never happens. It's like, well, come on, there's so many people waiting.
We could have a long talk about
At that
Trimark,
meeting,
but he wants to be somewhere in
Yeah,
front.
I
that's,
was 2
this
days
is
out
a
of my
whole
surgery.
different conversation.
Pretty
So I
wasted, so I don't
just
remember
from
that.
my perspective.
All right, I'm not so medicated this time, sorry.
I hope she's driving.
This has nothing to do, she did not injure me, this is not from her. Though she has a great backup.
All right, well, thank you very much for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad we could find a way to accommodate him.
Yes.
So,
Here forever.
future meeting date is September 10th, and then any additional agenda topics that the committee has?
No, I was just gonna say, I'm not sure if whoever does the calendar things didn't send a calendar out for the August one. I think, like an appointment, like an invite.
August.
Like normally the last few facilities committee, someone sent out like an invite, and I was waiting for that. So literally like a week ago, I was like, oh wait, I totally have a meeting.
It's Barbara, and she's not there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we
Oh.
switched. We have temporary,
okay.
had temporary folks, so way to cross over.
I mean, I can add it myself. I just was curious if it was gonna come again, or else
lazy.
I'd do it with doubles. No,
I'm
I end up
lazy.
with doubles
Noelle takes care of me
otherwise.
with these things, so you know.
Yeah, well, I got it because I got the agenda, and I was like, oh, okay, I have a meeting. I knew that. but-
September 10th works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, we talked about it last month. Okay. So you're
Still
good?
works for me.
Still good?
Want to
Okay.
keep,
September 10th, 6:30. If anything comes up for the agenda, please get it to Alvina or myself, and we'll make sure it's on there. All right, any further discussion?
Nice job getting out by 8, folks.
Okay, 7:55, beautiful thing.
Let's go plan a walkathon.
That's that.